We have a very special guest, Mr. Jason Taylor, out of IBEW Local 291 in Boise, Idaho. He wears two caps. He's the assistant business manager and the president of the local. Jason, how's it going?
Good, Noah. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good as well. Thank you for asking, and thank you for taking the time to do the episode. I think something the union trades greatly needs is an online presence. I think you could agree with that. I know you guys are fairly active online as well, which I can appreciate, and I know many other members can. So thank you for taking the time to do the episode.
Absolutely. Glad to give up the time, brother.
Yeah. To begin with, if you want to just give a little synopsis about your stuff. It doesn't have to be overly long, just a quick breakdown of your life to get you to the point in which you currently are.
Sure. Yeah, I organized into the IBEW in 2015 with a organizing campaign with DirecTV and AT&T. That organizing drive spanned 14 states and covered 3,000 employees and
That's awesome.
about 36 technician locations and 2 call center locations. So I was a DirecTV technician for 12 years before I took position on the hall staff in December of 2016.
That's awesome. And coming from, I guess what a lot of people don't realize is that the IBEW doesn't just cover like the inside wireman or the, I guess, lineman component. I feel like that's something that's important to notate because the IBEW consists of a lot of different things, which I think is pretty interesting and something that's honestly just overlooked.
Sure, yeah. I agree. AT&T had its first contract with the IBEW in 1901. That's a year longer than my local's been in existence. Local 21 in Chicago has held that AT&T agreement ever since. In my local, we don't just do inside, we do outside. We do the telecommunications, we do broadcast, we do professional and industrial. We do all kinds of different classifications and represent all different kinds of folks. So the IBEW is more broad of an organization than sometimes folks realize.
And I think that's, once again, important to notate because you might not want to be an inside wireman. You might want to be a lineman. You might not want to be either one of those two. And there's plenty of other avenues out there. It's just a matter of getting that exposure out there. So that's pretty cool and makes you, in my opinion, a little more unique than the average just electrician off the street or going directly into the apprenticeship. So that's pretty cool. With that being said, you didn't just join the union, you helped build it through organizing. What's the real difference between a workplace that's organized and one that isn't?
I think the worker empowerment is a big difference. Having a say in your workplace, having the ability to conduct grievances, enforce contracts, having a say in your workplace is, to me, vital in how we progress as workers in this country, and that's a significant difference. In every state but one, they are all at-will employment, which means you can be fired without any reason.
Yep.
Only Montana has just cause written into their labor laws. So big difference there. Union contracts establish cause for terminations. It holds the employers accountable to a degree that they're not held accountable in non-union workplaces.
And that's something that's, at least for me, I came from the non-union side before I joined the union. I wasn't fired. I did quit, but something that I wouldn't say enjoy because it's not an enjoyable process, I guess. But if I had to, or if someone needs to, the grievance process is something that's in place. Obviously, you don't want to get to that point, but things do happen. And I think that's, in my opinion, an added bonus to everything. So I think that's a very valuable aspect of the unions, along with a lot of other things. I'm glad you mentioned that. Jared Melton was also supposed to be on the interview. Obviously, he's not at the moment because he's out organizing, which is, in my opinion, a little bit more important than this at the moment, which is awesome.
I agree.
But you two work closely on organizing and education. Where do you actually see things differently? I guess, where do you see things differently from Jared? And how does that make the local stronger instead of weaker?
I think we actually have a really healthy debate process before we make a decision and march forward with how we're going to approach specific topics. Jared comes from a construction background. I do not. Multi-employer agreements versus single employer agreements. So From an organizing perspective, it's an entirely different model. In the construction world, it seems like a vast majority of what we're doing is top-down approach to organizing, trying to sign contractors, engaging in stripping, taking workers from other employers, signing them up, organizing them, getting them to work under an IBEW contract. A lot of what construction does is marketing, making sure we're available when they need us, being a friendly face and a welcoming hand when they walk in the door to talk to us about starting the path or continuing their path in the electrical industry, as opposed to single employer type organizing, where single employer type organizing has to be from the bottom up.
Yeah.
You can't organize from the top in a single employer environment such as telecom, broadcast, professional environments, things of that nature. You have to go through the NLRB election process. You have to gain worker voice. You have to gain worker power. You have to gain a majority. It's an entirely different approach to things. Not to say that you can't work from both angles and both types of organizing. From the single employer perspective, you can work on neutrality agreements that quiets the contract or the employer down, allows for a recognition before an election on a voluntary basis. And with construction, I absolutely think that we could organize from the bottom up, and I think that's one of the things that the IBEW could sharpen their spears on, get a little sharper, and that is empowering workers. I think a lot of times we look at the obstacles to what that looks like because it is, significantly different in the multi-employer world, but I think that would help generate power. I think that would help generate strength when it comes to bargaining, and those two different perspectives, I wouldn't necessarily say clash, but what it does lead to is different ideas, right? So when we're organizing single employers, then Jared's got some different ideas that I may not have thought of, and vice versa. So it's a good collaboration when it comes to organizing, and we make it work. When I was hired into the local, we had about 700 members in 2016 in December. As of today, we're about to break 2,100. So
That's
we've
awesome.
gone almost 300% a decade, and
awesome.
It's not slowing down.
That is awesome, and I think it's good to have differing opinions, and it's always nice when those differing opinions ultimately have the same goal. You might butt heads a lot, but at the end of the day, the goal remains the same. So I'm sure that definitely is an added benefit, and that's awesome. I want to jump back to the organizing aspect. I know right now through, I would say, non-union, union construction trades as a whole, there's obviously a mass demand across all different construction trades. I fully agree with you. I do think not just the IBEW, all union trades and even union organizations promoting the trades need to do a way better job at their organizing methods. I do think every local, especially their organizers, should be online. I was just watching a little short clip of Lou Antonellis out of Local 103, and he basically, I don't remember his exact quote, but it was, if you're an organizer and are not on social media, you're not an organizer. And at this point, I fully agree with that. A lot of people might not, but I think at this point, a lot of people would agree with that. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, Lou's super progressive from Boston. Great brother to have conversations with. Super passionate about the IBEW. So
Yeah.
I'll agree with him and shake his hand next time I see him in a meeting.
Going off of that, there's obviously a lot of noise online about not just unions, obviously unions, but the construction trades as a whole. But pertaining to the unions, what's the biggest lie being told that people are actually starting to believe about the unions?
That's a tough question. I think you really kind of dig into politics when it comes to that type of discussion. I think most people are so politically divided right now that the biggest traction in the cultural world is which side of the political line you fall on. I like to tell people that you're really going to have to ask me a specific topic to tell you who I want to talk to. If I want to talk to folks about deregulating the union's requirements or looking at ways to free up some restrictions on what we're not able to do that every other nonprofit in the world is able to do, then I want to talk to Republicans. I want to talk
Yeah.
to them about these are the burdens that we have. This is the regulatory capture that's creating roadblocks for us. Not that we tend to gain much traction, but those are the folks I want to talk to. And then when I want to talk to folks about pension reform, like we did in 18 and 19 with the Butch Act, where we had Republicans wanting to tax our pensions to pay for failing pensions, and as opposed to that, the opposite side of the spectrum wanted to create some type of government loan program that ultimately ended up being the method that we went. But again, when it comes to the things that people believe about unions, I don't think it's anything new. I think it's always been there. I just think as a voting bloc, the union used to be a little bit more predictable.
Yeah.
So now it's super easy to get to fall on one side of the political spectrum and genuinely believe that unions are this or unions are that. And I always tell people to have a conversation with us, bring up a topic, let me explain to you my position on the topic, and I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm always going to tell you just to vote, participate in our democracy, have an opinion, have an educated opinion, ask people you trust, keep an open mind about the topic. But I think, again, I don't think it's a new lie or a new half-truth about unions, but I think it's become far more polarized lately.
I would agree with that. I personally, I mean, it's going to be kind of weird to say. I don't care if, at this point in life, I don't care if it's Democrat, Republican, it's just pro-worker. If I don't care what side of the spectrum they're on, pro-workers where I'm at. I know a lot of people are like that, but I also like the fact that you mentioned just being educated on the matter. Don't just, well, my friend told me to vote for this person, so I went out and voted for him. At least know what you're voting for, because at the end of the day, your vote could either make a really good impact or a really bad impact. So
Sure.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think we had a recent IBEW brother in Florida win an election by a pretty small margin. So I think people need to pay attention, get out there, register, vote, and support union members when they run for office, because regardless of where we stand on any other issue, we know those folks are going to be good for workers.
I fully agree with that. We're starting to see kind of I call it more of a worker shifted setup going on. Like out in Texas, there's been a few union members that have turned historically Republican areas, so it's always good to see things like that.
I agree.
You've sat at the table for multiple contracts. Walk us through a moment where negotiations were going sideways and what actually turned it around. And for those that don't know, what exactly is a contract? I mean, everyone should know, I feel like, what a contract is, but what's a union contract consist of?
Sure. I think the easiest explanation is just a legally binding contract that sets out terms, conditions, benefits, and wages of employment. It's what we've agreed to work under, what the employer has agreed to provide. It's a two-party system. Jared likes to use the word symbiotic relationship, so I'll throw that in there for him. If he doesn't make it to the taping here, then he'll get a kick out of me using his word. But as far as going south, man, I will say I don't think any negotiations ever goes as planned.
That's true.
Thinking in terms of things that go south, you can very easily go from pushing a 3-year term to a 1-year term. You have to be able to pivot away from items that you felt like you wouldn't be able to at some point in time. You have to be willing to work long hours. You have to be willing to be patient. You have to take good notes. That's one thing that I've always said. I've seen bargaining tables where the notes were sloppy. That actually creates more problems than people, realize. But I will say, I think one instance that stands out in my mind was bargaining a contract with AT&T for DirecTV, and 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. I think we finally settled around 5:30, 6 o'clock. But I think we were working on 35, 36, 37 hours at that point, and
Wow.
You really come to understand the measurement of your character at 4:30 in the morning when you're screaming and yelling about something that just nobody else agrees with you on, man. And I can't say that it wasn't me doing the screaming.
Yeah.
Because it was, but that's the fun part about bargaining is you get enough folks in a room, you get a good outcome out of the deal, and you fight until the end, you ratify the agreement, you go out there and you enforce it, and you come back another day. But I would say that some negotiations with employers are a little more predictable. It's a
Yeah.
little more structured. But a good brother that taught me a lot, Paul Wright from Local 21, said when asked why we bargain contracts at 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and all he could say was because that's what it takes to get good contracts. So regardless of how hard bargaining can be, you're going to do your best. You're going to go out there. You're going to present it. You're going to ratify it, and just understand that it takes a lot of agility and a lot of patience to do it.
I would I would fully agree with that, and I would say, I mean, at least in today's environment, no contract's probably going to go fully in favor of one side or the other. So it does take a little negotiating and maybe a little push and pull here, but it's good when you have people that are adamant about it, like you taking on those tasks. So that's something a lot of rank and file members don't really ever hear about or see in person, so it's always good to talk about it, in my opinion.
Well, and when it comes to bargaining, I think one of the things that 291 can always do better, or maybe do differently. I don't always like to say better; that implies a negative, but you
Yeah.
can always do differently. Is to for all the IBEW locals out there, the UA locals, the Teamsters, every local out there, being transparent and getting as many people involved in the process only benefits us. And I understand that it's not easy to sit in a room with 80 people, 90 people, and wade through the opinions of 80 or 90 people, because 80 people in a room with 85 opinions, right? So
True.
be patient, be transparent, and really importantly, stand in front of your decisions. Be willing to stand in front of the crowd and say, this is a decision we made, this is why we made it. Expectations are always high, and they should be. Workers deserve a fair piece of the pie. We deserve more than we'll ever get, and I'll believe that until the day I die. Workers turn the world, right? So
That's true.
manage expectations as best you can. Be transparent, and go to 5 o'clock in the morning if that's what it takes.
That's true. Transparency with anything in life is big, and I know people in the trades are big on transparency. It doesn't matter if you're union, non-union, just on a personal level. So that is
Yep.
very critical. And then we were talking about contracts. In a right-to-work state, the system is designed overwhelmingly to weaken unions. What's the real strategy to not just survive, but still grow?
Well, first off, any opportunity I get to talk about right to work, I start by saying right to work doesn't mean that you can be fired for any reason. That's not what right to work means. Right to work means that we can't enforce union security clauses. You don't have to be a member of a union to take a union job. So in Idaho, we're a right to work state, and that means anybody off the streets that qualifies to sign our books can take one of our jobs, decline to pay dues, decline to pay assessment, and go out there and work under a union contract without contributing to its success. So you hear the online chatter for decades now. Right to work means you can be fired without a reason. That's has nothing to do with what it means. In terms of how to effectively bargain and organize in a right to work state, you have to provide value. I don't think it's any different than any other business. I hate to call it a business. I don't think we're a business.
I get what
But
you're
it's-
saying, though.
Yeah, the strategy has to be similar. You have to provide value. If you're not following up with your members, if you're not making them feel like this is their home and not just the local Geico office,
Yep.
then you're not going to have any success. You're going to have people that join your union and don't continue to pay your dues. You're going to have people leave, continue to work because, truth be told, they're not going to find better benefits, better wages, and better conditions.
That is fully
But that doesn't
true.
necessarily mean in a state where they don't have to pay dues that they will continue to pay dues. So we're really successful in that. Our construction unit's better than 99%. Most of our other units are in similar shape or numbers. We do a good job making sure that we provide answers. I like to tell my members I don't always have the answer you want, but I have an answer for you.
Yeah.
Doing that, following up with that, being a good communicator, that's all effective strategies. And being honest about who we are and what we are, man. Identifying things that people don't necessarily like about unions. We always say you can lose a vote in a room where you're really passionate about a topic and the other 51% of the people disagree with you, and therefore we don't move your direction. So being honest about those type of things, explaining our culture, We have a tradition, the IBW. We all carry a dues receipt. We all got a yellow ticket in our pocket. We go about folks coming into the union. We make sure we teach them never to fold the bug, right? So when you're folding your union receipt to put it in your pocket, you always tri-fold it. That way you don't put a crease in our union bug that was fought and died for since 1891. So making sure that people understand they're a part of something special, part of something important, that's a big, has been successful as well. And the other thing is, and you touched on it earlier, was education. Doing new member orientations, doing Comet, doing Code of Excellence. We're doing a Robert's Rules of Order. I've been a parliamentarian for a long time. So making sure that we can educate our folks, teach them how to navigate the union world, that keeps people invested as well. So I don't think any one strategy necessarily signs the check, so to speak, but a good education base, a good follow-up base, and good communication goes a long way.
Yeah, that's the same with anything in life. Humans, I feel like across the board, they want to feel involved, they want to feel important, and those small things go a very long way. And it sounds like you guys are doing a very good job at that. If you weren't, you wouldn't have grown from 700 members to 2,100 members, especially in the current state that you guys are in. So that's awesome. If you strip the politics out and just look at the ground level, who's actually winning jobs right now in your area, and why do you believe that's the case?
I actually think we're doing a heck of a job. I think our market share in the commercial sector is between 60 and 70%.
That's
Overall,
awesome.
we're 32, 33% when you factor in the residential, which is one of the highest numbers in the Rocky Mountains in the 8th District in the IBEW.
That's awesome.
A lot of that credit goes to our organizing team and to our contractors. They have to bid the work, get the work, and do the work in order for us to keep members employed. So we also have a massive project, several massive projects, but one that's regularly on the making the rounds on social media with the Micron semiconductor facility. They're compensating our electricians tremendously well to build a product. It really goes to show what we can do. We've had a long-term relationship with Micron. We value that relationship. They're a great customer, great employer, and a good steward of our employment environment here in Idaho. So, listen, man, we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of folks on book 2 and hundreds more coming in every day. So the type of money that folks are making out there on that project's life-changing. It's an amazing thing. So we're growing. We've got more work than we know what to do with. There's another dozen projects on the horizon that are in the hundreds of millions. So, don't come to Idaho. We're all full, man.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. If it sounds like if you're looking for work, maybe you want to just travel out to the west a little bit, that might be the perfect time to do so. It sounds like, and I'm sure a lot of those jobs are paying over scale, or at least a Micron, for instance, which is definitely a nice added bonus. If you don't mind me asking, what is the pay rate, or I guess the journeyman hourly pay rate in Local 291?
The base rate or the wage rate of our everyday CBA is $45.33. Our total package is up around 63. The Micron project's paying $65.33 to the wages. They are paying $170 a day times 7 for anybody with an address more than 75 miles away. And they're working 60, 50s out there. So you're 230, 240 for an everyday journeyman, up to 300 for foreman, and 330 for general foreman. So again, it's an amazing project, man. You can sign the book online, though.
That is nice. That is something I actually have a big gripe about throughout the organization is some locals make you fax in some stuff, others make you travel there and sign a book. That's nice that you guys offer that. So that's the progressive type of thing I personally want to see out of union labor.
It's not without controversy. I don't think every member agrees that we should be allowing folks to sign the books online without visiting the hall, because it does create a situation where double booking is a little easier. You're working and you're on an out-of-work list, but it's impossible to police something like that. And we've had days down at the hall where before we implemented that particular policy, we had 80, 90, 100 people in our lobby by 8 a.m. trying to sign the book. So um, I'm not saying it's the best system in the world, but I am saying a system where somebody showed up at 8 and couldn't sign the books until 3:30. I don't think that's a good use of our members' time. I don't think that demonstrates value. And I think it means you need to modify the way you go about conducting business. So.
Yep, there. I fully agree with that. That kind of not leads me into it, but speaking of people ultimately kind of doing different things, where, I guess across the whole IBEW or union labor, where are we actually losing people right now? Because, I mean, we have apprentices dropping out, guys turning out and leaving, or just general disengagement. But what do you feel is the biggest issue with, union trades and people leaving? Because I think in the IBEW, I don't know the specific number, but I think it's a little over 50% actually complete their apprenticeship throughout the whole organization. Obviously, that's going to vary local to local. Non-unions actually lower than that. But where do you think the disconnect is?
First and foremost, I just want to say the apprenticeship is tough. It's not easy.
Yeah.
I think from the very beginning of the apprenticeship, I think we are asking people to take a job that's both hard on their body, hard on them mentally.
Yes.
I don't think our wages are terrible, but 49% of journeyman scales, 21, 22 bucks an hour, and one of the highest cost or highest home value places in North America. It's tough to buy a house. It's tough to live, right? Our average home price is almost $600,000, and that's just obscene when it comes to comparables, right? When it comes to wages, we're 49th in the nation, and our home costs are one of the highest. So I think that's a big factor. I think folks are starting an apprenticeship looking for ways to make more money, right? So driving an Uber, doing DoorDash, side jobs, weekend work, and I think that produces a level of burnout that we can't sustain.
I want to just chime in real fast. The first two you said early, or my first about 2 years of my apprenticeship, I did just that. I did Uber, I did DoorDash. There's a platform out there called SudShare, which is picking up. It's basically an Uber for laundry. I did that, delivered pizzas. I did a lot of interesting things in that time frame.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yep, and if Jared was able to make it, he'd tell you he did the same thing. And I know he did. I was on the hall staff when he was going through his apprenticeship, so I had plenty of conversations with him about, I'm Ubering this weekend with my wife. He used to say that was date night sometimes. Him and his wife would go make a little extra money and spend a few hours together, taking turns driving, taking turns dropping stuff off. So I think that creates some burnout that we don't account for. I also think we're hard on apprentices, and I know there's plenty of folks out there who will say, well, that's what you're supposed to be with an apprentice. You're teaching them to be a professional. I don't disagree, but with all the mental health issues we have out there, it's significantly higher in the trades than most other professions. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we continue to treat apprentices like we did in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And we need to be aware of that. We need to focus on that. I think there's a difference between being stern, being an educator, holding people accountable, and just outright disrespecting people and creating a tough situation for them to walk into work every day. You don't ever know what anybody else is going through. It's one thing to call an apprentice names or some good-natured ribbing here and there, but it's quite another thing to deal with some of the things that I've heard on job sites. So I think as people, we should be far more considerate of the people around us, especially folks that are learning the trade. There's a significant number of the IBEW members that are retiring in the next 5 years, and those guys are the ones that are going to lead us into the future. And if we don't keep them, retain them, train them, educate them, and lift them up, then we're not going to have much of a industry left when it comes to the IBEW being part of building the electrical structure in this country.
That's very true, and it's a trickle-down effect from there because pensions will slowly, maybe not even slowly, quickly vanish because money's got to be pumped into those to keep them going. So there's a long line of implications that go with that. It's not just people out of work, it's a lot of other aspects of that. But yeah, mental health is a big thing, and at the end of the day, no, especially early on when you're not making much money, no one wants to go to work, be harassed, and
Yep.
yeah. I mean, thankfully it did not happen to me, but I've saw others that it has happened to, and it's just, yeah. We're all humans at the end of the day, and I think that's
Right.
where we leave that.
We're all getting up, putting our boots on, and going out to take care of our families.
Yep. What's something about the industry, the electrical industry as a whole, union or non-union, that people don't want to say out loud but needs to be said, in your opinion?
I think I'll touch back on the mental health aspect. I think it's really hard for people to talk about, especially as men in this country, right?
Yep.
Talk to be tough, suck it up, dry your eyes, cry in the shit house, not on the job
Yeah.
site, right? And I think that hurts us. We lost 3 members to mental health crises last year. We need to talk about it more. We need to remind people that it's okay to not be okay.
Yep.
That when you're suffering through something in silence, that's not going to get the job done. I am my brother's keeper means something. It doesn't just mean throwing a guy $50 when he's down on his luck. It means being a phone call away at 2 o'clock in the morning when you don't know if you're going to see the sunrise. So I think just making sure that we're taking care of each other in that aspect as well would really change the way we move forward and really make us more successful. If we're able to address items like that and able to accomplish significant gains in that department and put a stop to some of the stuff that doesn't necessarily need to get exasperated as it does,
Yeah.
I think the IBEW would be in a better spot than the folks that choose to work without an IBEW contract. If we're addressing those items, we've got more power together. We could really change the way that impacts our industries.
I would fully agree with that, and it's something I know, at least since I've started, there's definitely been more resources put out there, even through my home local, for mental health, but I think it's something as a collective whole. I don't think you ever reach a good enough spot. I mean, you could do as much as you want about it, but I don't think you can ever do enough for something like that, and I hope it's something at least the IBEW continues to build on, because I think it's definitely needed.
I agree.
And then 5 to 10 years from now, do you foresee electricians being in a better position like right now, or do you see the electrical trade as a whole falling behind, especially on the union side? Because right now, obviously, we're in a data center boom across most of the U.S. But do you foresee electricians now benefiting more, or I guess in 10 years from now benefiting more?
That's a really tough question to answer because it's really going to depend on how we respond to new technologies in our workplace, right? I was just in Washington, D.C. at the construction conference. One of the presenters on stage showed a video, and it was a robot drilling holes and sweeping and doing those type of things from Google. They also had a slideshow that went with that presentation that talked about the amount of on-site work being done versus the amount of work being prefabricated prior to arrival.
Yep.
And their ideal metric was definitely not slanted in the favor of the workers, right? If they can prefabricate and create these systems to the tune of 70 to 80% off-site before they're shipped on, then electricians are no longer a trade. They're no longer a craft. They're just installers. They're just installing, it's Legos, man. It's Lincoln Logs to date myself, right? So it really depends on how we respond to those challenges. People need to build the robots. People need to service the robots. So we need to make sure that we're addressing those particular sectors of the industry and not just who's putting up pipe and where they're putting it up, right? So I hope we're in a better spot because we've made good decisions when it comes to new technologies.
I agree with that, but this leads me into a question. We talked about organizing. Do you, in your personal opinion, do you think things like that, I mean, prefabrication has been around for a while. Obviously, it's been growing over the past, I'd say, 5 to 10 years in specific. But do you think, because we have not been able to, and it's not just the electrical trades, but since we have not been able to organize in as many members as we need. Do you think that plays a role into the speed up of, I guess, AI technologies, at least pertaining to the electrical trades, or I guess the prefabrication process?
I don't necessarily think so. I don't think throwing bodies at it is going to stop the acceleration of technology in this country. It's going to accelerate whether we like it or not. I mean, I think back in the last year I was in high school, my parents put a car phone in my Chevelle, right?
I remember
And
those.
I remember it had a little cord and it was plugged into the middle of my console, and I was like, man, this is absolutely crazy. I don't have to be attached to this long 20-foot cord in my kitchen. I've got some privacy. I can talk to my girlfriend, all that kind of stuff. So, and now we have computers more powerful than anything we imagined in our pockets.
Yep.
So I don't think throwing more bodies at it is going to slow that down. I think we have to look at ways to organize in those industries. We have to organize manufacturing. We have to organize the prefab. And we do that by the way we approach bargaining. We have to make sure those topics are raised, make sure that we are addressing mandatory topics of bargaining without letting employers tell us no. No is not an answer at a bargaining table. If it's a mandatory topic of bargaining, they're required to respond. And our response should not be they keep saying no, they keep saying no, so we stop passing the proposal. It should be to change a word, change a letter, change a date, and continue to show that being one of our priorities. If we don't do that, no amount of people is going to change what happens to the trade industries as a whole.
I can agree with that. I'm just interested in hearing others' opinions on that. So I agree with a lot of what you said. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I do think at the end of the day, everyone is an organizer. So whether you're just an apprentice, maybe you're a CW, a journeyman, or business manager, whatever the case may be, we're all organizers. We all have the ability to bring someone in, and even if you don't bring them in, at least you're making them aware of what we're doing, and maybe that person will tell another person who tells another person that ends up joining. So just be an organizer.